Hello students, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. I'm your English teacher. Today we are going to read the last chapter, the last lesson from your NCERT English textbook, An Alien Hand. And the title of the lesson is also called An Alien Hand, written by Jayanta Narlikar. Before we read, let's check this out. Have you heard of the Viking Missions to Mars? The National Aeronautics and Space Administration's NASA's Viking mission to Mars was composed of two spacecrafts, Viking 1 and Viking 2, each consisting of an orbiter and a lander. The primary objectives were to obtain images and samples of the Martian surface and soil and search for any possible signs of life. Viking 1 was launched on 20 August 1975 and arrived in Mars on 19 June 1976. The Viking 2 was launched on 9 September 1975 and entered Mars orbit on 7 August 1976. Besides taking photographs and collecting other science data on the Martian surface, the two landers conducted 3 biology experiments to look for possible signs of life. As of now, there is no clear evidence of the presence of living microorganisms in the soil near the landing sites. Now read the story. Tilu and his parents lived beneath the surface of the planet under artificial conditions. Tilu has heard and read about the sun and the stars. He has never seen them. Tilu's father goes to work through a secret passage, and Tilu wants to know all about it. Let's read this. Tilu, how often have you been told not to go that way? But why does Daddy go there every day? Because that's his job, Tilu. That way was an underground passage. Tilu's father went every day for walk along that passage. Every day he came back from that direction. What lay at the end of that forbidden road, not only Tilu but a great majority of the community would have liked to know. Tilu's father was one of the select few permitted to go that way. The above conversation invariably took place between Tilu and his mother whenever he insisted on following his father. Today, however, was different. Tilu's father was enjoying a siesta at home, and Tilu managed to get hold of his security card. Then, evading his watchful mother's eye, Tilu made his way to the forbidden passage. Natural door barred his entry, but Tilu had watched his father slip the magic card into a slot. He did the same, and the door opened noiselessly. A well-lit passage seemed to beckon him. Snatching the card which had come out of another slot in the wall, Tilu started his march along a gentle upward slope, for the passage led from the underground habitat to the surface of the planet. Tilu looked forward to seeing the sun, if it was daytime, or the stars, if it was night, about which he had heard and read so much. But alas, that wasn't to be. Tilu had underestimated the security arrangement. Invisible mechanical devices had already detected and photographed the small intruder, sent his picture to the Central Bureau, where it was thoroughly checked, and before he had advanced 10 paces, a strong hand felt heavily on his shoulder. Gently but firmly, he was escorted by the security staff back home to an anxious and angry mother. While he was being scolded, he received help from an unexpected quarter. "Let me explain to him, darling," said his father, who had just got up. "If he is properly briefed, he will not do such a thing." He started to explain. "Listen to you. I walk on a surface where an ordinary person cannot survive because the air is too thin to breathe and where the temperature is so low that you would freeze to death. But Daddy, how do you manage to survive?" "Because I go well equipped in a special suit with a reservoirs of oxygen. I can keep warm and my boots are specially designed to make it easy for me to walk on the surface. What's more, I have been trained to survive and work on the surface. There was a time when our forefathers lived on the surface quite naturally. Indeed, they did so for millions of years, but times changed. The very sun which had provided us with sustenance turned hostile. It changed only slightly, but the change was sufficient to upset the balance of nature on this planet. First, the birds became extinct. The animals followed. The fish could not bear it anymore either. We managed to survive only because of our superior technology, but we were forced to live underground under artificial conditions. Thanks to solar energy, we can generate sufficient power to make our life comfortable. But the machines which make this possible must always be in good working condition. Some of them are on the surface. I belong to the team whose responsibility it is to keep the watch on them and to service them." "Daddy, can I join the team when I grow up?" "Of course, if you want to," said his father. "But for that, you must be a good boy and do as your parents tell you." His mother had, as usual, the last word. Comprehension Check. How does Tilu manage to find his way to the forbidden passes? What did Tilu hope to see once he emerged from his underground home? Why did Tilu's father advise him not to try to reach the surface of the planet? What changes had occurred which forced people to live in the underground homes? The big TV screen in the control room shows an alien spacecraft. The question whether there is life on other planets exercises above this mind. The president of the Central Committee is about to make an important statement. Next day, when Tilu's father went to work, he found the control room full of excitement. People were crowded around the big TV screen. It showed a dot in an otherwise clear background. It isn't a star, for it's changing its position. Our computer has given a trajectory for this thing. It's heading towards us. The supervisors of the last shift explained. A spacecraft. Tilu's father asked. By now he was joined by his teammates on the new shift, so we think, but it needs watching. A spacecraft from where the solar system was known to have any life anywhere else except on their planet. Tilu's father recalled the ancient days recorded in the archives of the Central Bureau when their ancestors had a well-developed space program and had searched the solar system with manned and unmanned spacecraft and found that they were indeed alone. Now, in the days of the energy shortage and underground life, they had no space program. They could only watch importantly from their vantage point. Who were these strangers? The conference room in the Central Bureau was so quiet that an outsider would have thought it was empty. Far from it, it was full to capacity, but the members of the Central Committee were unusually quiet. They knew that the president was going to make a momentous announcement. Colleagues, I will give you the report as I have it. While I speak, there may be a change in the situation. The president paused to get his papers in order and then continued. Two spacecraft are approaching us. One is, in fact, orbiting our planet, while the other is still far away. We guess that they are coming from our neighboring planet. How should we react? Number one, your views, please. Number one was in charge of defense. He was known for his courage and wisdom. Sir, if we wish, we can totally destroy this spacecraft with our missiles, but that wouldn't make us any wiser. We do not have the capacity to render this craft unoperational in space, but should they land, we can render them ineffective anytime we choose. Our reports said that they do not contain living beings, they only have instruments. Number two, your opinion, please. The president asked the scientists on the committee. I recommend non-interference and passive observations, since we do not know the power of the senders of this spacecraft, and we are still in the dark about their intentions. It is wise not to reveal our existence. If we destroy these spaceships or render them ineffective, we might reveal our existence. The president looked at number two, a social scientist. He rarely agreed with number two, but this was one of those rare occasions when he did. I agree with number two, sir. In fact, I will go so far as to say that we should keep our surface activities to the minimum, thus creating the impression that there is no life on this planet. Fortunately, our surface conditions do give that impression. Before the president could speak, his personal telephone rang. He lifted the receiver and listened quietly for a minute. Colleagues, he announced, the first spacecraft has landed. Why was everyone in the control room greatly excited? Was the spacecraft manned or unmanned? How do you know it? What did number one and number two suggest should be done about the alien spacecraft? Tilu accompanies his father to the control room. In his excitement, he presses the all-important red button on the panel, and the mechanical hand from the alien spacecraft stops working. The mechanical hand is activated again, but it finds no signs of life on that planet. It was a red letter day in Tilu's life, the day he was waiting for his father had at last taken him to the control room. From here, he could see the alien spacecraft on his TV screen. What a funny looking thing, Daddy. What does it contain? Tilu asked. His father shook his head. Can't say for sure. We are only allowed to observe it from far. But we control all its parts and can exercise our power if it is up to any mischief. He pointed to an impressive panel with several colored buttons on it. Tilu looked at them wistfully. Look, it's up to something, Daddy. Tilu suddenly noted some movements in the spacecraft. Others in the control room saw it too. All eyes were now glued to the screen. The mechanical hand was emerging from the spacecraft. It was approaching the surface of the planet. It bent and touched the swirl. What was it up to? People crowded towards the screen for a closer look. The telescopic lens of the TV camera zoomed in to the tip of the mechanical hand. Tilu was staring at the control panel and its attractive buttons. An irresistible desire got hold of him to press the most prominent of all buttons, the red one. He moved. There was a shrill whistled and Tilu found himself the center of attention. His father pulled him away roughly and restored the red button to neutral position, but the damage was done. The mechanical hand from the spacecraft ceased to work. At a press conference held by NASA, a scientist was briefing the whole press. Everything has been going on smoothly with the Viking missions. There is a small hitch. The mechanical hand, which was to dig out the Martian soil for examination, has developed a malfunction. We don't know the cause, but our technicians are confident they will sort it out. And shortly afterwards, there was another press release from NASA. The mechanical hand is working again thanks to the efforts of our technicians. Soil samples are being collected and examined. Soon we will know the answers to the questions whether there is life on Mars. Life on Mars, of all the planets in our solar system, Mars is nearest in location and physical conditions to our Earth. So the scientists behind the Viking missions were hopeful of finding life on Mars. But they were in for a disappointment. The Viking missions found no signs of life on Mars. Jayanta Naudlika. Comprehension Check. What do you think the mechanical hand was trying to do? Tilu pressed the red button and the damage was done. What was the damage? Where had the spacecraft come from? On which planet do Tilu and his parents live? Exercises. Discuss the following topics in groups. If you had to live in a home like Tilu's, what parts of life would you find most difficult? What compensation might there be? What, if anything, might drive mankind to make their homes underground? Do you think there is life on other planets? Can you guess what kind of people there may be on them? In what ways are they likely to be different from us? Martian probes may have killed microbes. Two NASA space probes that visited Mars 30 years ago may have stumbled upon alien microbes on the red planet and inadvertently killed them, a scientist has theorized in a paper. The problem was the Viking space probes of 1976-77 were looking for the wrong kind of life and did not recognize it. The researchers said in a paper presented at a meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Seattle on Sunday. This news report, based on a more expansive view of where life can take root, may have NASA looking for a different type of Martian life form when its next Mars spacecraft is launched later this year. One of the space agency's top scientists told reporters. Last month, scientists excitedly reported that new photographs of Mars showed geologic changes that suggest water occasionally flows there, the most tantalizing sign that Mars is hospitable to life, from a recent newspaper report. That was actually an excerpt from a newspaper report. Now let me summarize the lessons for you. An alien hand. This story, An Alien Hand, is about Tilu, who was a small boy. He lived with his parents beneath the surface of Mars under artificial conditions. Tilu had never seen the sun or the stars. His father went to his work Delhi from an underground passage, Tilu was forbidden to go there. His mother warned Tilu about not going there, but one day Tilu managed to get hold of his father's security card and went to that passage. He opened the door and came to an underground tunnel which led to the surface of the planet. But the security persons caught Tilu before he could go 10 steps. The security staff brought Tilu back home. His mother was furious, but his father explained everything to him. He told Tilu that an ordinary person cannot survive on the surface because the air is too thin to breathe and the temperature is too cold. He told Tilu that when he goes out to work, he goes well equipped with spacesuit, oxygen, warm boots, and clothes. He has also been trained to survive there. His father also told him that their forefathers lived on the surface for millions of years, but when the sun gave warmth and light to their planet. But slowly the balance of nature got upset. Birds, animals, and fishes became extinct. Man survived because of the superior technology, but he had to begin living underground. They managed to extract solar energy and use it to make lives comfortable. Tilu's dad looked after the machines which made this possible. Tilu understood everything and he decided to be like his father when he grew up. Next day, Tilu's father went to work to find much excitement in the control room. 2 spacecrafts were seen on the computer screen. They had come from some other planet. A conference was called to decide what to do with these 2 spacecrafts. It was decided that they would adopt a wait and watch policy because these crafts were unmanned. Tilu also accompanied his father to the control room. He saw the crafts landing and one mechanical hand collecting soil. Tilu pressed a red button and the hand stopped working. On Earth, NASA scientists made efforts to get that hand set right. Their efforts bore fruit and the hand started working again. It was then that the Viking mission scientists concluded that there were no signs of life on Mars. Tilu managed to get hold of his father's security guard and made his way to the forbidden passage, but a metal door barred his entry. He had watched his father slip the guard into a slot. He did the same and the door noiselessly opened for him. With this, he found himself in a well-lit passage, but he could not move further as security devices had detected and photographed the intruders. Soon a strong hand held him by shoulders and he was escorted out of the passage back. The mechanical hand developed a malfunction and it was corrected later. Actually, it was Tilu who pressed the most prominent of all button, a red button in the control room, and the mechanical hand ceased to work. The technicians of NASA corrected its malfunction and it started working again. Tilu's father managed to survive in extreme physical conditions on the surface of the planet? Because he went there well equipped. He wore a special suit with reservoirs of oxygen. His boots were specially designed that made it easy for him to walk on the surface. Moreover, he was trained to survive and work on the surface. The Viking mission scientists were hopeful of finding life on Mars because the physical conditions on Mars were almost same as on the Earth. The red letter day, was the day when Tilu's father took him to the control room for the first time. The temperature in that place where Tilu's father worked was so low that one would freeze to death. The research that have been made so far suggests that no other planet has favorable conditions for survival. Unsuitable climatic conditions might drive mankind to make their homes underground. Tilu and his parents lived beneath the surface of the planet. Everyone was greatly excited in the control room as two spacecraft were seen approaching the planet. The spacecraft was unmanned. It only had instruments. They come to know about this from the report given by the president of the Central Committee. Number 1 suggested that the spacecraft should not be harmed as long as it remained non-threatening. If it landed on their planet, then they should render it ineffective by using their technology. Number 2 suggested that they should not interfere and observe passively so as to not reveal that they exist on the planet, since they do not know about the spacecraft's intentions. And the president followed the suggestions of number 2, which was the wait and watch policy. Tilu manages to find his way to the forbidden passage with the help of his father's security guard. Tilu also hopes to see the sun or the stars depending on the day on the time of the day he emerged from his underground home. Tilu's father advised him not to try to reach the surface of the planet because it was not easy to survive there. The air was too thin to breathe and the temperature was too low to survive. Without proper equipment and training, no one would survive on the surface. People started living in underground homes when the sun turned hostile and the balance of nature was disrupted on the planet.